Has anyone else lost their passions in their 30s? How did you find a new path? Hi, my name is Sadie Schertzer, and I help motivated individuals access their authentic voices so that they can communicate with clarity and confidence in their personal and professional lives. So this person talks about having had plans in the past and that they worked tirelessly towards a business venture, and that now they don't sense that it's burnout. They're just ready for something new. They're ready to start over. And they're looking for some real life examples of how you figured out what's next. At the very end, they say, full disclosure, I've always known what I wanted to do, and the certainty was the comfort that got me through very dark times. Without it, I feel lost and hopeless, and I'm slipping into depression with every passing day. It seems to me that this question really has to do with identity, because this person identified as somebody incredibly motivated and hardworking for the last several years. And now that their passion has either diminished or shifted, they don't know what their identity is anymore. The feeling of losing one's identity during a major life change is a very common feeling. And I see it a lot in parents. When somebody has a kid for the first time, it completely uproots their life. They have to change a lot of habits. And maybe if they went out a lot before, they're not able to do that now. They don't identify as that kind of person. Maybe if they're a high-powered business individual and they just don't have enough sleep to be able to think clearly and ask the kind of questions they would have asked or drive a team that they, in the same way they would have before, they don't feel like they really identify as that high-powered business person. So first and foremost, I would speak to this person and just about the loss of identity. And I would ask a couple questions around how they viewed themselves in the past. The part of this post that really drew me in was when they said they can't think their way out of this. And I recently heard someone say, don't think harder, breathe deeper. Because there's only so much work that our mind can do to get us to the next phase. If their passion has gone from something, then maybe it's time for their intuition to step in and to take over. And so that can look like meditation, journaling, maybe getting back into fitness if they aren't already, finding ways to connect with their inner voice to essentially turn off the brain and allow their intuition to come out and to drive them. They also mentioned that they have been journaling. So we might move into a line of questioning that talks about pressure that they're putting on themselves to get to the next point. Is there financial pressure? Is there pressure from peers? Have they had periods of life in the past when they've sensed an enormous amount of pressure? Because we're not always operating at our optimal selves when we feel like we're under a deadline or under a microscope. And then I would also touch on this last bit that they talk about, which is that they've always known what they wanted to do and how they were going to do it, and that certainty was the comfort. Is there room for vulnerability alongside certainty? So for instance, if you were an athlete when you were younger and you had dreams of becoming a pro athlete, and maybe that didn't work out, but you had a chance to work in sports or work with athletes by being a trainer or a coach or being adjacent to the players on the field, would you deem that as a loss or as a win or somewhere in the middle? Because working in sports could look like something other than being the player on the field. And that could be due to something very simple like an injury. Do we qualify that as a failure in our minds, or are we still able to work in the fields that we wanted to work in by finding a different path that still aligns with athletics? We place enormous value on declaring what we want to become and then becoming that person. And we're not always as compassionate with ourselves as we could be when the goal shifts a little bit. And as someone who has had an extremely fulfilling career and who has shifted myself, it's okay for goals to shift. In fact, it can be even more fulfilling than the original goal. For anyone else who is struggling with their identity, I would love to work with you. I offer one-on-one coaching sessions. You can reach out to me at theclarityexchange@gmail.com. And for everyone else who is out there putting in their 1, 5, 10-year plan and working tirelessly, I wish you the best of luck, and remember to keep being compassionate with yourself and know that your identity is your values and your character and who you are on the inside. Have a great day.